Hello, good morning. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and as always, I'm here on Wednesday for about an hour to answer your questions, to talk about some random topics and some Stonemaier Games news. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is a week before Essen Spiel, one of the big game conventions that happens worldwide. And I won't be there, but Stonemaier Games will have a presence there. My coworkers Dave and Alex will be there. We're sharing a booth again with Inside Up Games, which worked out really great last year. We really appreciate them bringing us in. And so, yeah, we're doing that this year. So if you're going to Essen Spiel, please stop by our booth and say hi. Check out what we're doing. We have, I think they put a lot of effort into making it a really welcoming environment for both all types of people, and just kind of the setting as warm and welcoming. I think it feels a little bit like a living room, the way they've set up the demo area. So I hope you have a good experience if you stop by the booth at Essen. Are any of you attending? Let me know if you're attending Essen Spiel, what you're excited about there. Dominic says he's hoping to hear about Design Day, which is one of the main topics today. The Stonemaier Games Design Day was indeed this past week. And I see Carol in the comments here. Carol was at Design Day, and Miles was also at Design Day. It's a really special day in my opinion. I really enjoy having this event. I think this was around the 10th year that we've done it. I'll have to look up the exact numbers. I'm going to do a blog post about it tomorrow. But if you don't know what it is, Design Day is a day that Stonemaier Games hosts at Pieces Board Game Bar and Cafe here in St. Louis. And it's attended by game designers who want to playtest their prototypes, and playtesters who just want to play, who are willing to give their time and feedback to help out with those playtests and to playtest those games. So it's a really neat day. It's a really neat mix of creativity and vulnerability from the side of the designers, and generosity and constructive criticism from those who attend and playtest games and offer feedback. And so I'm there. My goal at Design Day, my personal goal, is to hopefully have a few moments with everyone there. And I never quite meet that goal. It's about 100 people. And so I'm kind of going around spending time in smaller groups or one-on-one with people just to talk with them for a few minutes and connect with them. I didn't quite meet that goal, but I came pretty close this year. And so if I missed you, if I didn't have that moment with you, I'm really sorry if you attended Design Day. If I did have that moment with you, thank you for giving me your time. I really appreciate that. Joshua, let's see if there's anything else about Design Day that I want to mention. I'm sure some other things will come up. Oh, I do want to thank Pieces too. I really appreciate Pieces for hosting again this year. It's a wonderful board game bar and cafe in St. Louis. If you ever come to St. Louis, I highly recommend going to Pieces. Their staff is awesome. They have a ton of games, and their food and drink are legitimately delicious. Like, it's not an afterthought at Pieces. This is the last year that we'll have the event at the current Pieces location. They're moving to a bigger space next year, so we'll be able to invite or include more people next year, because there is a limit as to the capacity of Pieces. So I don't know the capacity for next year yet, but I know it will be a bigger space, which I'm excited about. Joshua says, with the focus on Essen, I'm getting ahead of myself, but will Stonemaier Games have a presence at PAX Unplugged this December? Let's see. I'll pull up our website, and here I'll show you how to navigate to this. I'm going to pull up the Stonemaier Games website. Games. Here we go. I'm going to pull it up on my other screen here, so you can see where to find this. If you ever wonder, is Stonemaier Games going to be at X convention, you can go to Stonemaier Games over here, and you can go to news and go to events and conventions, and let's find out. Are we going to be there? PAX Unplugged. We are going to be there. And by we, I mean probably my coworker Dave, or we'll have an official presence there through a retailer. So it does look like Stonemaier Games will have some sort of presence at PAX Unplugged. I won't personally be there, but that's not my main part of Stonemaier Games. But yeah, it looks like we will be there, Joshua. Chad says, have you ever played a board game on a couch and coffee table? On a couch and coffee table? I have, yeah. In fact, at our game nights, at the game nights that we host every other Wednesday, we have 2 main tables, and then we have a pretty big coffee table. It's a very big coffee table where if we have a bunch of people attend game night, usually it's around 8 people, but every now and then it goes 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we'll use the coffee table for that purpose. And I definitely have played some games there. And we have another table too that we pull out when we have game days, that sort of thing. Chet says, did I hear that Pieces is getting bigger so you can add more people to Design Day? That is correct. Yeah, I don't know the capacity yet, but Pieces is getting a little bit bigger. I'm seeing some people comment that they're hoping to attend in the future, and I'm hoping that you can attend in the future thanks to this bigger space. Yeah. Says, I've searched and can't find an answer. In Stamp Swap, for scoring purposes, is there a minimum amount of stamps needed to be considered a group? No, a group is just even just one stamp in Stamp Swap. And Steve, if you ever do have any questions like that you can't find the answers to, feel free to ask them in the FAQ on our website in the comments, in the Stamp Swap Facebook group, or on a thread on Board Game Geek, and we are happy to answer very quickly there. And that way, by asking there, it's great that you asked in this video. I appreciate that. You're welcome to do that. But by asking in the comments of one of those places, it'll be there forever. So someone else looking for that question will be able to search and find it. Mark says, what's the top mechanism this year? If I remember correctly, last year was trick-taking games. I don't know if there was a common mechanism this year necessarily. I saw a wide variety of mechanisms at Design Day this year. Joe wanted to share the big news that Wormspan is restocked in the US. We've been waiting for this for quite a while, but Wormspan is now back in stock. So if you're looking to get Wormspan for yourself or for a gift for the holidays, it is back in stock now, and hopefully we'll be back in stock for quite a while. So thank you for your patience if you've been waiting for that. Joe's going to send out some back in stock emails so people find out about that in their inbox as a reminder, but I'm happy to tell you that as well right now. Thank you, Joe, for popping in. Garrett says, how's the Outlook replacement situation going? Did you find something that's working a bit better for you? Yeah, I talked about this a few weeks ago, maybe last week, that my Outlook wasn't working, but really has stopped working. I've used Microsoft Outlook for a long time. So for the last couple of weeks, I've just been using two different Gmails on two different monitors. I've had my personal Gmail over here. I've had my work Gmail over here, and it's worked pretty well. And I can still open my old Outlook. So if I need to, I had it very organized by folder. So if I need to look for an email that was in a specific folder, I can go find it there. So far that's working for me, Garrett. We'll see if I keep that up or if I use one of the recommendations that you and others mentioned to me. Thanks for asking about that. John says he's excited to try Expeditions Gears of Corruption, which he just recently got. Thank you, John, for checking that out. I hope you enjoy it. Matthew says, I think you remember you saying that you like heist shows and movies. Yeah, heist fiction of any kind, I really enjoy. A good book is Foundry Side. It has a good magic system, and it's a heist story with twists and turns. Ooh, I love that recommendation, Matthew. Thank you for bringing that up. It gives me an opportunity to talk about some of my favorite books and movies that I'm reading recently. So Foundry Side, awesome. So right now I'm reading, I'm reading a couple different things. I've read two books back to back with the word impossible in the title. I read The Life Impossible last week, which is kind of literary fiction with a little bit of a speculative twist about an older woman who sees her life as winding down, and she goes to Ibiza and realizes that there's a lot more to life than she expected, with a little magical twist to it that I thought was really neat, a little science fiction twist. So I think that was called The Life Impossible. And now I'm reading a book called Impossible Creatures that I saw an article saying something like it was the next Harry Potter. I have a lot of Harry Potter nostalgia from reading that when I was in my 20s. I think it was mainly coming out. The book was being released in my 20s. And I've never really found a book that scratched that specific itch. Like, this book is definitely geared towards slightly younger audiences, but it's written really well. It's a good read, and I'm really enjoying it so far. That's Impossible Creatures. If you're looking to scratch that Harry Potter-ish itch, like, it is not a copy of Harry Potter in any way, but I don't know if you had that experience reading Harry Potter when you were younger. I know there's a lot of unfortunate things that have happened with J.K. Rowling since then, but my nostalgia and appreciation for the books, for the most part, is still there. And what was the other thing? Oh, Chaos. Chaos is in the title here of the today's video. This is the show that Megan and I have been watching. We've been watching The Rings of Power and Only Murders in the Building, but Chaos, we have the full season available right now. So we've kind of been burning through this show. It's a show about set in the modern day, and it's based on the idea of what if the Greek gods were real and have been real for a long time, and everyone knows it. Everyone knows that they are real. So there's essentially just one religion in the world, because it's just like that is the way the world is. people know for sure that this is real, and how the world is different as a result. For example, everyone in this world has a prophecy. When you're born, you have a little poetic prophecy that you can try to figure out for your life. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting show. It's a little gory, it's a little violent, a little bit too much for my taste. I could actually remove that completely and still appreciate everything about the show, what the show is. But other than that, I'm really enjoying it. Molly is joining us as well. Molly was at Design Day. Molly, thank you for making the long drive down here to St. Louis and then back up to Canada for Design Day. Jeff says, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Survivor. Not sure the right decision was made at Tribal. Yeah, this was I was a little frustrated by the result at Tribal, the first episode of Survivor. I don't want to spoil anything. It was a great episode, certainly unique, especially in terms of one of the people on the show. And yeah, it's as always, I'm really excited about Survivor this season, Jeff. And it is so character driven now that even though I'm frustrated by a certain person on the show, I appreciate that they're putting themselves out there, and I appreciate the show for casting them because they're definitely making a really interesting show so far this season. Julie's also reading The Life Impossible. That's great, Julie. I hope you're enjoying it. Yeah, Chad's reading the first Mistborn book, one of my all-time favorite fantasy trilogies. Let me know if you are reading anything good right now or have read anything great recently. Let me know in the comments. Kevin says, the last restock of Expeditions Gears of Corruption sold out super quickly. Is there another printing in the works? So we actually haven't really restocked the Ironclad Gears of Corruption yet. There's just been one printing, and after we did the initial shipment, we had a few extra copies in the warehouse that we also put on the web store. We always have a little bit of a buffer like that. The restock, the reprint has been in the works for a while. It takes about 4 months to reprint something, and we're wrapping up production now. So it should arrive in early December. That is the expectation, and it'll arrive along with, if everything goes to plan. So the Ironclad version of Gears of Corruption will arrive with packs, separate packs that have either the 5 metal mechs from Expeditions or the 2 metal mechs from the expansion, plus the base snaps that go along with them. So if you already have Expeditions and you just want the metal mechs, you want to add the metal mechs, you'll be able to do that. If you just want to get the expansion with the metal mechs inside, there will also be an option for that. Jonathan says, over your design and publishing career, what has been the biggest understanding about audiences that went against your initial expectations? That's a fantastic question, Jonathan. And I'm curious, actually, that's such a great question. I'm curious for anyone to answer that, if there's something like that. My biggest understanding about audiences that went against your initial expectations. Okay, I do have one here, Jonathan, one that, yeah, so I often say if enough people ask us to make something, then I will make that thing. That isn't globally true because certain times I just really don't want to make the thing for whatever reasons, or I don't think it is prudent for various parties involved to make the thing. And I almost feel that way about my answer here. But enough people asked for it that I decided to do it. My answer would be the idea of big boxes. And not big boxes in the sense of big box that includes everything ever made for the game, but big boxes in terms of this is a big enough box to hold everything that we've made for the game. We've done this essentially 4 times, the most recent being Rolling Realms Redux. And that is actually the type of big box that I like because it actually isn't that big of a box. But multiple times people have asked us, can you make a box that can hold everything in X game? And X game has been Scythe, Viticulture, and Wingspan. And each time we've done it, and it seems to have gone okay. But that has been the most surprising thing to me, that people would want that. They're very expensive to make. They're very expensive to ship. And I think they actually make the game less portable. They make the game less likely for you to take that game and bring it to someone's house if you have that sort of big box. So I guess part of that is about product design and us finding better ways to design those types of boxes so they are more portable. But that has been one of the biggest surprises that has gone against my initial expectations of what people wanted from a game. Yeah. Let's see. Jerry says, Board Game Hot Takes podcast, game designers who mentioned that before that they may not be the best game player. Has your opinion changed? No, I think I've said that multiple times, even recently. I love playing games. Absolutely. I love trying games that I know well, games that are new to me. But when I play games, I am focused on two things primarily. I'm focused on, actually, maybe three things. I'm focused on, no, it's two things. I'm focused on the other people at the table. I really want the people around me to have fun when I'm playing games. Sometimes make decisions that maybe are a little suboptimal for me because I want the other people around me to have fun. So that's part of it. That's one of my motivations when I play games. The other motivation is I'm very intrinsically motivated. I like to do things that I think are interesting in games that don't hurt other players. So oftentimes that involves building something interesting. It might involve an outlier strategy. It might just involve something different than what I've done before. So I've had to, I've tried to I don't know. That's what motivates me more than trying to win the game. Yeah. I don't know if that makes me what did they say? Not the best game player. It's just a different type of game player. I think you could still be someone who's good at games, but not necessarily good at winning games, depending on what you perceive as being successful in playing a game. Darius says, what is the percentage of games published through the design day versus submitted online? So the main purpose of Design Day is not to submit games to Stonemaier Games. It's an event that we host to hopefully benefit other people. That is the main intent there. The small little bonus that I get is that I get to walk around and look at a lot of amazing games and enjoy the creative energy and maybe see a game that we might consider publishing. So I guess you're asking what is the percentage of games published through Design Day? So how do your odds increase of being published if you actually attend Design Day versus just submitting via our online form? And my answer is still a little bit like the two aren't one and the same. Like the way to submit a game to us is through the online form, and even games that show up at Design Day, they need to be submitted through our online form so that it's in our system. So I would say 100% of the games that we have found at Design Day that we have published are also on the online form. I don't know the answer offhand. So because of that, there's overlap. There's a connection between the two. Let's see. Games that we actually discovered at Design Day and published. Stamp Swap is the most recent. Pendulum and Apiary. I think it's the three. Yeah, I think it's just three. There are a few others that have appeared at Design Day, but we already knew that we were publishing them at the time, and maybe the designer was attending to playtest the game there. Joshua had a note about Survivor there. Let's see. Just looking through comments here. I'll pause for a second and talk about Undergrove. I mentioned Undergrove in the subject line here. Undergrove, I played twice last week. So this is Elizabeth Hargrave's new game about a forest that is largely driven by mushrooms and trees, as forests are. And the neat thing about Undergrove, something that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, is that it is a tableau building game, but none of the players have their own tableau. You're completely sharing the tableau in the middle of the table. It looks a little bit like a tile placement game, but the focus is not on placing tiles. It's on which tiles you end up pointing your roots towards and sprouting a tree, which I kept saying in my video about it. I kept saying sapperling, which is a term from Magic the Gathering. I meant sapling. That you're putting between these tiles and then spreading roots out from there and absorbing carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. I should know the science now that I played this game back to back. You're absorbing through the roots what the trees need to grow up and become full trees. But it's really neat in terms of, it's almost in a way, the way I perceived it, it almost seemed like Elizabeth Hargrave's response to Wingspan, which is also her game. And that Wingspan is very much, you're controlling your own tableau, you're building your own thing in front of you. And this is a little bit like that, but shared with all other players in a competitive game, which is really interesting. We played twice back to back, and two different groups of people played. I played it back to back, but with two different groups, and the games were very different based on the tiles that were played at different times in the game. In our first game, resources were very scarce and very difficult to get. But in the second game, we had a lot of tiles out there with actions that said, you gain this big benefit, and all other players also gain a resource whenever you use this action. And more than one player could actually use that action too if they have roots pointing towards it. So we had a very resource generous game in that one. So it was really neat to see that based on the tiles that players selected to play, and when they played them, and when you chose to point your roots at different sorts of tiles, really had a big impact on how the game felt from one session to the next. So yeah, that's Undergrove. I do have a video about it yesterday, but because I played it so much recently, I wanted to mention it briefly here. I had virtual game night last week too. We played, what did we play? We played Daybreak. I think that was last week. We played Daybreak and then played Captain Flip. We stumbled a little bit through Daybreak. Jeff was teaching, but Jeff hadn't played a little bit since Geekway. And so we stumbled a little bit, but this is a cooperative game that's on Board Game Arena that is about saving the world in terms of the environment and making the world much more eco-friendly. So it's a cooperative game. You can all lose together. And we did lose after, I think, around 3 rounds. We didn't do all that well. And I found that the interface on Board Game Arena is really good. It's a really good implementation. But the cooperation was tough. Even working in real time with people over Discord, it's tough to see what everyone needs, and you're kind of talking over each other a little bit, which is a lot easier to do on the actual table. So it's a game that I want to play on the tabletop again. I don't know if I'll play Daybreak on Board Game Arena again, though. I'm going to write down Jonathan's questions here, or question about expectations, because I could make an interesting blog post about types of things that have that I've learned about our audience and the gaming audience that has it defied my expectations, or what I understood about gaming over the last 12 years at Stonemaier Games. Garrett says on that topic, I noticed that I want big boxes, but then don't play the games as much as I used to once they are transplanted into the big boxes. I'm starting to shy away from the big boxes now. That has also been my experience. And I tried really, really hard, especially with the Scythe Legendary box came out a long time ago. Much more recently are the wine crate, the viticulture wine crate. I'm pointing over here because they're both on top of my shelf over here, and the Wingspan nesting box. For both of them, I tried to design them so that setup and cleanup were a big part of the intent behind the game. And really, the wine crate is pretty portable. The nesting box is just, it's big and it's heavy to actually carry that to someone's house, even though I tried to make it so it is pretty easy to set up out of the box. It's just kind of physically big to get off the shelf and get to the table. Kevin has a good point. Here was a good compromise. For the Tapestry big box, there is no Tapestry big box. Rather, the original box that Tapestry came in was a big enough box to hold all the components. Thanks to us working, or thanks to really Folded Space, not us working with them, but Folded Space finding a solution for the box itself, a storage organizer solution created by Folded Space. So that was a way that I really liked doing that. Just making a pretty big box out of the gate and then finding organizational systems for it later, which were actually far more cost effective for everyone involved than making a giant box. Sam McDavitt is joining us. Sam, I got a shipping notification for Everstone the other day. I'm really excited for that to arrive. Congrats on what seems to be a really smooth production on that. I'm surprised for your first game that you really got that out of the gate. So Everstone, I believe, is being shipped right now from McDavitt Publishing. Sam says, based on your belief that big boxes make games less portable, you're right. It is my belief. It isn't universally true. I've just found that to be somewhat true for myself. Does that passively or actively influence how Stonemaier Games handles expansions? That's an interesting question. Maybe a little bit. I mean, you see that what I do with Expeditions. I was very intentional with the insert design and the box design, figuring that we were going to have at least one expansion that would have some new mechs. And so I wanted to be able to fit that into the original, or fit that new content into the original box. We did it with My Level Scythe too. In fact, we have quite a few games where we almost, and Apiary too, Apiary very recently, Expanding the Hive, designed specifically to fit into the original insert in the original box. So I think it has had a pretty big impact on how we've approached expansions. Like the question has almost become, can the expansion fit into the box? And if the answer is no, maybe we don't make that expansion unless there's a game like Wingspan that really, really takes off and there seems to be a thirst for more expansions. Yeah. Mark, thanks for bringing up Vantage. He says, great Vantage reveal this month. The character art is so cool. Also, great font selection, too. I can easily read the text on the cards. Thank you, Mark, for saying that. Yeah, this month's reveal, if you are curious about our upcoming game, Vantage, due to release in around, or to launch probably in June 2025. I'm doing monthly updates for it. And this month's update was about the characters in the game and about the idea in games of building your character before you actually play the game versus building the character as you play, based on the things that you have that character do in the game itself, the things that they collect, the things that they earn, the experience they gain, the things that they do, things like that. That latter style is what Vantage is. I wanted as little friction as possible to get into a game of Vantage. I think that sort of character building generally works a little bit more for a campaign game, where you are building the character in advance, and Vantage is not a campaign game. Vantage also has specific characters. So you're not building a character. I'm not building Jamey, the character. There are 6 characters in the game, each focused on a different skill in the game, with mild asymmetry. So there's still a lot of freedom for you to decide what that character does in the world. But yeah, anyway, you can check out the Vantage update. It is available on our website. It's available on the Vantage Facebook page. It's available on Board Game Geek and the Vantage newsletter if you want to get that from now on, month to month. And as Mark mentions, for the first time, we showed one of the locations. It's still a sample location. It's not a real location of the game. So you can look at this location without spoiling anything. But we showed it with real graphic design. So you can see what the actual font looks like, opposed to my prototype, which I've been showing so far, which is not an accurate portrayal of what the final game will look like. But we have one fake location with real graphic design in that update that you can check out. Question from Fairly Odd Parent. I was finally able to play Expeditions this weekend, and it was great. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that. The downside, the box doesn't fit on my shelf where the label reads up. How do you consider the label direction on boxes where the label reads up? Interesting. What type of shelf do you have? So we designed the Expeditions box. It's a big box, granted, but it does fit into a Kalos shelf. So I wonder if you have a shelf that's a little bit smaller than that. But that is, somewhat of the standard of designing game boxes, if they fit into a Kalos shelf or not. For the label direction. For our goal with any game, and I guess sometimes we don't achieve this goal, but the goal is to have 2 different sides of the boxes. One where the box can be oriented vertically, and the other where it can be oriented horizontally. And I guess maybe what you're saying is that for Expeditions, the sides of the box where the game name is horizontal, maybe it's just on the long sides of that box, where we should have done one shorter side of the box that has the label that way. George says, you used to make your own realistic resources, but you stopped. Why? Which of your games have official realistic resources or other add-ons? Yeah, George, there is a blog post about this, but it's from a long time ago. We basically decided a long time ago. So you're right. We used to have this big focus on realistic resources, and we decided that we were just going to focus on games and resources specific to those games instead. And at that time, we decided to work with Top Shelf Gamer and sell them that line of realistic resources. So they are still being made. In fact, they are still being made in really beautiful, creative ways. And there are new realistic resources as well from Top Shelf Gamer. So they are carrying on that line that we started way back in 2014, I think. As for official realistic resources, Scythe has realistic resources. There is a nice resource pack for Wormspan, but they're wooden resources, so they're not quite the same as the realistic resin that we used for painted resin that we used for Scythe and Euphoria. Euphoria was where it originated. I think those are the 2 that have realistic resources. Although really the whole point of the realistic resource line was that they could be designed and used for a variety of games, not just a specific game. Jonathan says, I think you'd love Wilmot's Warehouse. Great moments of working together, and as said on Decision Space, channeling, which is a great podcast, channeling some great subliminal energy of the mind, which I know you like. I need to put that on the list. I've heard multiple people mention that, Jonathan, and I need to put that on my list of games to try. The next game that I think I'm going to play, although I have game night tonight, I don't know which games I'm going to play tonight at game night, but tomorrow, I'm really excited to learn and play Creature Caravan from Red Raven Games, which I was jealous to see Carol, who was here earlier, playing at Design Day recently. Chaz says, can we get an updated video of games that Stonemaier Games would have published if pitched to you maybe in 2024? Chad, I actually did a video about it earlier this year. So, yeah, I think if you search for that, you'll be able to find it from maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Definitely sometime in 2024, I posted that video. Carol just asked about game night tonight. Play anything in particular at your game night tonight? Not anything specific. I don't have anything specific planned for game night. Usually people bring some games, and of course I have plenty of games to play if we want to play. I don't know how to play Creature Caravan yet, so we won't play that today, but I'm going to play that tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, Helen prompted me for chocolate of the day. I haven't done chocolate of the day. You know, I treated myself. I was at the grocery store this morning, and I treated myself to I've been mostly eating dark chocolate, but there's this 48% milk chocolate bar that I really love from Endangered. It's like Endangered Species chocolate, something like that. I think some of the proceeds go to help endangered species, and they're 40% milk chocolate. It's just really, really creamy and delicious. So that'll be my chocolate of the day today. Thanks for asking about that, Helen. Oh, Garrett says that he play tested Undergrove with Elizabeth last year. He says it was a surreal experience, but we had a great time. It was embarrassing to make a rules mistake in front of her. Oh no, I understand that, but I think that's helpful for designers if they see what types of mistakes you're making, so they can make that more clear in the rules. Hugo says, is it normal to have to change the theme of a submitted game because that theme already is similar to the existing game portfolio? Hugo, interesting question there. I would actually answer it in a slightly different way, which is I would not recommend submitting a game with a theme that a publisher already has to that publisher. Generally, I don't think that goes over well. Keep in mind that publishers are submitted a lot of games. And so in many ways, we're really looking to filter out games that aren't a good fit. And so if you submitted a bird themed game to Stonemaier Games or a mech themed game to Stonemaier Games, my initial impression is, oh, we already have that. We already put a lot of focus and energy into this other bird game, Wingspan, this other mech themed game, Scythe. And so we're probably not going to look at this other themed game. So I would actually recommend, I would say, partially to answer your question, I would recommend not submitting a game with a theme matching a major game from another company to that company. Change the theme or submit it to another company, another publisher. The other part of the question is it common to change the theme of a game? It's a little common. It happens. I think it's happening less and less as designers are doing really honestly a better job of incorporating theme and mechanisms into the game from the start. So it's more difficult for a publisher to look at the game outside of the context of the existing theme, but it still does happen. For example, Apiary was a game about bees. And I asked Connie if she might be interested in making it a game about space bees instead, which I know is a little outlandish request, but it actually opened up some design space in the game where Connie was a little restricted by nature. And so by adding that little sci-fi twist, it gave her some flexibility in the design that opened up the design to some new elements that you can see in the final version of the game. So I think it is maybe more common to tweak the theme than completely retheme it. Julie says, is there a cooperative game you played in Board Game Arena that works well in that interface? I really love Tranquility on Board Game Arena. I think that's a cooperative game that works really well. And I do say that, Julie, with the caveat that I play all games on Board Game Arena in real time. I don't do the asynchronous play on Board Game Arena. I played in real time with players, or I'm talking to them over Discord, which I think really helps cooperative games. So yeah, I think Tranquility works really well, which is a little bit like The Mind with a spatial element. Jeff, yeah, here's Jeff, who was there in that Daybreak game. It was a lot easier on the table, but he still lost twice on the table. He enjoyed Captain Flip. A Captain Flip, not a cooperative game, but one that I've been really enjoying on Board Game Arena. Ruby Revolution says, did you see that Nick Henning from the vlog Phoenix is on a winning streak in the World Series of Board Gaming? I'm not a competitive player, but his strategy insights are fascinating. I didn't know that. In fact, I must admit, I haven't been paying all that close attention to World Series of Board Gaming. I'm not exactly sure how to. Like, in fact, I'll ask you, Ruby, how have you been following it? Have you just been following Phoenix here, or is there a World Series of Board Gaming YouTube channel that you've been following, or is there a specific content creator who's associated with it that you're following their content about it? I'd love to know, because isn't something I think I'll follow all that closely. Our games aren't designed specifically for competitive play, even though I think Wingspan might be in the World Series of Board Gaming. But But it is neat to see strategy insight, something that I don't see all that often in board game content. But I'll have to check out I need to spell this correctly or I'll never find it. Phoenix. I'll check that out. Jonathan says, just wanted, thank you, Jonathan, for this comment. Thank you for your limitless live support for the community. I'm constantly using your advice and connections preparing for a crowdfunding campaign. Thank you, Jonathan, for saying that. And I hope your preparation is going well. Yeah, that's it. It takes a lot of time and effort. And I did actually, Jonathan, hopefully this video will come out in time for it to help you. And you may not need it because I think you're already aware of a lot of our content. But my video that I filmed yesterday, I've been planning on doing this for a while, was a video about how to successfully self-publish a game, which is, that's all of the articles that I make for the most part, almost all of them. And a lot of my experience in entering the gaming publishing space. So I try to reduce it down to around a 30-minute video, hitting the 3 major steps that I believe that most people need to go through to successfully self-publish a game, and some details about some of the major sub-steps in between those 3. So that is a video I filmed on Tuesday. I don't know when it will be released, but that's coming soon, I think, for those who are looking for a video on that topic. Chess is curious if a box that acted as a chest of drawers that you can slide individual boxes out of would be viable. That way the big box stays on the shelf and you can just pull out the expansions you want. There are a few companies that have done this, but it still ends up being a pretty big box. And that those drawers can slide right out of the box, which can be pretty I'm losing video here a little bit here, but I'm feeling good. Still feeling really good. I've not actually noticed anything in terms of how my body acts differently without an appendix. So I wonder if it's 100% true that we just don't need the appendix, or if there is still a minor function the appendix is playing with all of you who have an appendix still. And I will someday wish that I still had mine. I've heard something about maybe a slight connection to colon cancer, an increase in chances of getting colon cancer. So yeah, I've heard a little study about that. Joshua says, when you get your initial prototype to the table, do you run through a mock game yourself to see how it feels, or do you typically go straight to sharing it with others to try a more standard game? Depends on the game. Expeditions was fairly easy, as is Rolling Realms, for me to playtest by myself before I was comfortable playing it with other people. But like yesterday, I got a prototype to the table with Megan that I hadn't played in a while, and she was a good sport and played along with me. It was a game designed by some other designers, not by me. So a little bit of a mix of the two. It depends on how much the player interaction element is to the game. If I can kind of go through the motions without another player, or by very lightly simulating another player, then I'll do that. Sam says, may I use your video format to talk about 10 games you may also like if you like Everstone? Absolutely, Sam. You're more than welcome to do that. But I would recommend, sometimes we get backlash about doing that because people are like, oh, I haven't played Everstone yet. Why are you telling me what I should like based on that? So recently I've changed that format. You can see it with Stamp Swap of, what do we call it? The Stamp Swap. It was like 10 games with similarities to Stamp Swap. And that didn't get that same level of backlash. And it happened for some reason a lot with Wormspan, where I was like, okay, there's a format that I've used for a while where I said, here are 10 games that you might love if you also love Wormspan. It's a video literally about loving games. And yet I heard from people saying, I haven't played Wormspan. And so how do I know what I'm going to love yet if I haven't played Wormspan? Even though really the intent of those videos is to say, if you love these other games, maybe you'll love Wormspan. And this video is going to be around for a long time, hopefully. So if you, in the future, play Wormspan, you can check out this video and find some other games that you might enjoy having played Wormspan. So be aware of that just in case you get the same type of backlash. Let's see. Casper says, Vantage will be at least the 3rd game you release this year. Not true, Casper. Vantage is a game that I've been talking about, but Vantage won't be released until 2025, probably mid-2025. My goal for games to release every year, in fact, I don't really have a goal. I do have a cap where I try not to release more than 2 games per year. This year, we released Wormspan at the very beginning of the year, Stamp Swap recently, and Rolling Realms Redux in the middle of the year. So I made an exception for that because it is, it's kind of a continuation of an existing game. But yeah, just want to clarify that Vantage is not being released until well after 2024 is over. Right now, we're in the graphic design stage of Vantage. So we haven't even entered production yet. Nicole is getting me more excited about Creature Caravan. Snappy turns and interesting choices. For there's a lot of simultaneous play. And I think what I'm hooked on right now, I'll say this, Nicole, I am hooked on games with a significant simultaneous element and then some other element of the game that is not simultaneous, where players kind of come together to do something together. This is my mechanical hook right now, if there is one for me. And I've heard that might be true about Creature Caravan. Garrett says, hopefully someone brings Windmill Valley tonight. That's still on my list to play, but I haven't gotten to play that one yet, Garrett, based on your recommendation. Jonathan says, interested in the new horror theme of Magic set launched yesterday on Arena. I'm curious about it. I've been following the news about it, the release about it. I love that how deep they've gone into the horror theme. Like some of the images they've shared legitimately look scary, really trying to get under your skin. That isn't a theme that I'm really drawn to. I appreciate it, but I'm not drawn to it. However, going back one set, I'm really excited to play Bloomborough. I have a draft set, tangible draft set that I'm really excited to play at a gaming weekend coming up soon. I'm hoping we get it to the table, even if it's even if we just open the packs up and play a few games. I'm excited to do that. So Bloomborough, that is the type of set that really, really excites me. Mechanically, though, both sets have interesting things going on. But I need to add Bloomborough to my list of games that I will talk about at some point, and hopefully the near future. Oh, Garrett mentions that two people who are closely connected to Stonemaier Games, Josh and Travis, they're currently at the World Series of Board Gaming as judges there. That's exciting. Here's Tim popping in to say, Tim was in St. Louis over the weekend, played pinball at the Silver Ballroom. Oh, Tim, I wish you had stopped by Design Day to say hi. I hope you had a good trip here. He says he played pinball at the Silver Ballroom. Didn't know that Gordon Ramsay had a new restaurant at the Horseshoe. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that either. That's exciting. What were you doing here in town? Johnny, my disc golf group, he says, have you heard of any funny nicknames for resources in Stonemaier Games? In our group, Charterstone grains are honeypots, apiary wax tokens are Rolos. They do look like Rolos. And tapestry workers are dudes. I've heard a few of those. I haven't heard of dudes. I have heard that the grain inside is often confused with gold, which I understand. There's another one too. Oh, Wormspan. What is the one in Wormspan? Oh, the gold in Wormspan. I've heard many people mention it as butter instead of actual gold, a gold nugget. And Mark, I think I briefly mentioned Rolling Realms Redux having a big box or being a big box in itself, but I like it that it actually isn't that big of a box. DD says, are you making a separate video about Design Day 2024? I have quite a few questions about hosting and planning a similar event. I'm doing a blog post about it tomorrow, not a video, but a blog post. And that blog post will also link to a bunch of other Design Day posts about Design Day. So I actually don't think the blog post will be all that different than this previous post. So if you want to just search for Stonemaier Games Design Day 2023 recap on the Stonemaier Games blog, you'll probably see you will see a post about it. That will be very similar to the post that I write tomorrow. I saw this. Corey from Blue Falcon Board Gaming has been teaching his daughter Pokemon, the Pokemon TCG, and she beat him in the third game. And I saw that you had a nice little reward. I think she got to open some new packs or something like that. That's really neat that she's getting into that with you. Oh, this is fun. You all are mentioning names for resources in our games. And really, this needs to be an April Fool's thing for next year. I think we have found our April Fool's video for what you call the tokens in our games if you have a fun, silly name for them. Johnny mentioned this. Garrett says he calls the tapestry workers Baymax. Didi also has the butter. Wormstone, Yoshi eggs. Of course, Yoshi eggs. Yeah, they were actually inspired by Yoshi. I love that. Yeah, I think that's I love that idea of seeing what people call the different things in our games. And I guess it could go beyond the tokens too. Sometimes there are specific abilities or cards that people have a special name for. Like, I I don't know if it would quite count, but you know, the back of the card, the Papa cards in I guess they're blue cards now in viticulture. A lot of people think it looks like Tom Hiddleston, and so they might call it that. I don't know if they actually use that term, but they think it looks like him. Aaron says, "Have I ever played Azul Queen's Garden? I think I played it once or twice. I know you like Summer Pavilion, but I think Queen's Garden is the most interesting and needs more love." I'm glad you really enjoyed it. It was not the puzzle that I wanted from Azul, but I'm glad you're enjoying it, Aaron. I'm still loving Summer Pavilion, although I must admit it almost went in my donation pile recently because I realized, as much as I love it, and I say that I love it, I haven't actually played it in quite some time. So if I haven't played a game in a year, and I don't think I'm going to play the game for a while moving forward, it goes to my Geekway donation pile. Not Geekway donation pile, Design Day donation pile. So I actually cleared off a lot of space on my shelves. Thanks to Design Day this past weekend. Hopefully people took home some games. And they're games that I love. I just don't seem to play them all that often anymore. Oh, I see. Tim was in town for a concert at the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Didn't get as much time in the city as he would have preferred, though. You actually weren't that far from Design Day, Tim. Let me know if you ever are in town again, so I can let you know if there's anything going on for Stonemaier Games. Ray says, for you and anyone else who wonders about this, is there a theme of a game you think is overpowered or underpowered in the industry? The theme itself. For instance, I think there are a sufficient number of games about ancient Rome at this point. There are quite a few games like that. Yeah, interesting question. I'm more interested in the underrepresented than the overrepresented, but and I always think it's possible to do something different with a theme that's already very common. Like there are a lot of games based in like the science fiction outer space, but every now and then a game is done in that space in a unique way that it looks different than those types of games. It plays differently than those types of games, and it can really do quite well. Dominic says his wife calls the wingspan worms snakes. Chad calls the scythe porridge. The wheat, he calls them porridge in scythe. Purple potatoes and worms. The purple, I like that. Julie says there are a ton of alternate names for specific cards people have shared in the Wingspan Facebook group. Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of those, Julie, so I'd like to highlight some of those on a video someday. Jamey says, have I played Deliverance? I have not. It's from my understanding, it's a campaign game, but I don't play too many campaign games these days. And it's a game about, largely, I believe, fighting monsters. And so those types of games where the goal is just to fight and kill a lot of things doesn't often appeal to me in terms of gameplay or in terms of theme. So I haven't played it. And I'm speaking based off a very loose understanding of what the game is. But I have heard that it is on crowdfunding right now. So if you like that type of game, feel free to check that out. Let's see if I have any other topics to cover today before we check out. Design Day was this weekend. Oh, one thing I didn't mention about Design Day, two elements actually. A semi-tradition that we've had for Design Day over the last 3 years is that I've invited people to come play disc golf with me, or try disc golf for the first time. There are definitely a lot of people who tried it for the first time. And so we had over 30 people come, 30 Design Day attendees come, with a few of my friends who know how to play, who could help guide the newer players around a course called Crestwood, which I think is the most beginner-friendly course here in St. Louis. And we had over 30 people come play. It was a wonderful afternoon to play disc golf on Saturday before Design Day. And I had a good time. I had a great time. I just played 9 holes, and I got to play with some people that I work with a lot, but really to actually play anything with some members of the team at Panda Game Manufacturing, our manufacturer that we work with. So great to spend some time with them on the disc golf course. I thought I had a few chances of getting some aces. I had a few ace runs that didn't quite touch the basket, but they looked like they were headed in the right direction and landed very, very close to the basket, but didn't quite go in. But that would have been cool to have happen at Design Day. But yeah, and then we had a dinner that night with my coworkers, some of whom were in town from out of town, some of whom are here in St. Louis, and the Panda team. We had a dinner with them on Saturday night, which was really nice, just to spend some quality time with all of them. Let's see. Kevin has a comment about the big box solutions. He says his reason for liking big box solutions for a game with a lot of expansions is mainly just to keep everything together. For me, multiple boxes of different sizes for the same game just look like clutter on my shelf for his OCD brain. Kevin, I'm curious about that. How do you feel about, like, say we had gone a different direction with Wingspan and said, okay, here's the Wingspan box. Here's an organizational structure for it, or organizer design for it that can fit like the core game and 2 expansions. And then we're going to release another expansion at some point in a box that is the same size as the original Wingspan box. So for you to play Wingspan, you need 2 boxes, but they're going to be regular game box size, and they'll look good next to the shelf. They'll be designed to be placed on the shelf right next to each other, and you'll be able to fit everything from all expansions in those 2 boxes. I don't know if that's entirely possible because we actually did design the nesting box around fitting accessories too, which take up a lot more space, which that becomes a whole other thing. If you have accessories that people are using that you don't even make, but people want you to be able to fit them into their game, that's another thing. But Kevin, what do you think about that idea of, instead of having a big box, having at some point another box that is the same size that's designed to accompany that game? So instead of having one giant box or one box that isn't big enough to hold everything and a bunch of expansion boxes, just having 2 boxes for a game or a brand on your shelf. Let me know what you think about that. Chad says, do you have a favorite Japanese mythology? I don't think I do. That's a good question. I don't think I do have a favorite. I enjoyed reading The Tale of Genji, which I read largely in Japanese when I was studying abroad in Japan, which is a bit of a slog for me because reading Japanese was not my forte. But I got through it, or got through a lot of it. But yeah, I don't know if I have a specific mythology, and that isn't even really mythology. Darius says, I'm working on his first print and play campaign, and I know you're not too into them. Yeah, nothing against print and play. It doesn't get me as excited as a game that I can pull off the shelf. What would make you interested in a PNP game? Theme, art, mechanisms. Honestly, the thing that makes me most excited about a game like that is if I can pull it off the shelf. If it isn't a print and play game. However, I will say maybe one thing, because I did design Rolling Realms. Rolling Realms was originally a print and play game, and one thing that I really liked about it, that I really appreciated, well, not appreciated, a goal of mine was that it was a single piece of paper, that you could print a single piece of paper, no cutting, no assembling, no, printing a big batch of stuff. They could just print a single piece of paper and play. That's appealing to me. That's more appealing to me than I think other versions of print and play games. Still don't know if it's enough for me to try. In fact, I have a game on my list that I backed on Kickstarter as a print and play game because I wanted to support the creator, and I still haven't played it because it isn't as exciting for me to print it as it is to pull it off the shelf. That's just me. Devil's Treasure says, have I had the chance to try Andromeda's Edge yet? If so, any thoughts? I haven't. I don't think I know anyone who owns it, so I haven't gotten the chance to play it yet. It isn't one that I plan on buying. Maybe I'll play it and then I'll decide I want to buy it, but I want to at least play it first. But I'll probably end up playing it at a convention first. Garrett says he introduced My Little Scythe to our 6-year-old twins a couple weeks ago, and one of them has asked to play every single day since. Oh, that's amazing, Garrett. That's really, really cool. Thanks for sharing that and sharing with them. So Jokeria says, I'd rather get multiple boxes of the same size with reasonable sorting than a big box. So at least maybe there's a little bit of appeal there. Yeah, James says, I don't have multiple expansions for games, so I don't ever get big boxes. He lives in a studio, so he's restricted by his space, which is actually a good restriction to have. Kevin says he thinks he might like that solution for instead of having a big box, having 2 boxes of similar size. And let's see, Chad says, I think a solution for needing a big box is to make a format for the boxes so they look like they match when on the shelf together. The unmatched boxes are a great example of this. Yeah, I like that. I like the idea that it looks like these boxes are meant to go together. Maybe that makes them harder to actually separate them as well. Let's see. Darren says, if you know ahead of time there will be expansions, that sounds good. Yeah, that's true. And you never, that's one part of the uncertainty. I'll leave that comment up to here, Darren, because you never know for sure. Like for any game, like you hope that your game, that people will enjoy your game so much that there will be more content to make for it. But at least for us, we put all the good ideas that we have into the core game itself. So that sometimes there doesn't even need to be an expansion for the game to be complete. And a game is complete based on what it currently exists for the game anyway. So yeah, you really don't know. You don't know what the future holds. I have stuff that I'm working on that I never would have thought I would have made. But sometimes you have an idea that catches you off guard that you think might really bring joy to people, and you run with it. Julio says that Root does this, multiple boxes of the same size, and I got to say he doesn't like it. Interesting. I very much appreciate the big boxes Stonemaier has put out. Let me know why you don't like that, Julio. I'm a little surprised by that, but yeah, what is it about the multiple boxes that you don't like? I think there is The downside that I see is that if you want to set up the game, you are not only just pulling multiple games off the shelf or multiple boxes off the shelf, but you're also opening them up and figuring out what goes where, and probably makes you can't consolidate all the things together that you want to consolidate. Yeah. James says, do I have a favorite yokai in Japanese mythology? He says, I love the Namahage, that's a demon that scares lazy children. You know, I know very little about yokai. I know about the idea of them, but I don't know specific yokai. So I don't have a good question, but I love that you have an answer for that. Jokeria says, I particularly like having a box for the base game where there's an entry-level teach and then the toys for the expansion in a separate box. So almost making the core game box as small as it can possibly be, and then having a matching size. Maybe you make it just deeper, but on the shelf, it's the same size, except deeper for the expansions. That's interesting. Jokeria actually mentions Root as an example here. Let's see. George has a related question about this. If a Red Rising follow-up is going to happen, are you leaning more towards an expansion or something standalone? George, you know, I appreciate you asking about that. I don't really want to say yet because I don't want to steer us down a path that may or may not happen. It is still, everything is still hypothetical for what might come for Red Rising. But there is something that I am working on, and I hope it works out. So Joker, yes, is kind of responding to Julio's question, or the question for Julio that I threw back at him, that for Root, that the content isn't sorted well. The factions are spread out across the boxes, which I can see that making that pretty difficult. I think the 3D printed organizers help consolidate the meeples and the board down. I can see that. Mark says, have you considered to have the stamps and Stamp Swap be wooden tokens instead of cardboard? You know, we didn't consider that. I think that would be a significant increase in cost. So we didn't consider that. But I can see tactily how that would be pretty satisfying. I've seen that type of tile in a Undergrove game. I'm blanking on the name of the game right now, but a Undergrove game has those wooden tiles, and they are really, really satisfying. Let's see. Anthony says, Apiary Hive box, if any more expansions come out, that would be a sick box. I think, so Apiary is probably an example of, because we now have everything that fits into the core box, that we probably won't even think about making new expansions for it, because it all fits, it all works well right now. So unless there's some brilliant, huge, awesome idea that takes up a lot of space, you probably everything that exists for Apiary currently exists. Chet says, is there Lego in our home? If so, what's that? Now, I don't think we have any Legos in the house at all. Maybe an odd character or two here and there, but none that I can think of. Definitely no sets of Lego. And Julio says it's the setup that he doesn't like due to the Root boxes. If I want to take it to a friend's house, and I have to take more boxes rather than a big box. That makes sense. I can see, I think setup does have to be a really big priority, not just storage, but also setup if you're making some sort of big box storage solution. Yeah, Joshua echoes this as well. I think that's all the topics for today. Oh, I did want to mention, some of you have mentioned in the past, you've recommended the show called Delicious in Dungeon. And I wanted to mention that I've started watching this show. It's my show right now that I'm watching while I'm like cutting up prototypes and assembling prototypes. So, and actually that might be going back to one of the other questions about why I gravitate away from print and play games, is that I already spend enough time assembling prototypes that I don't want to do that for a game as well. I just want to pull it off the shelf and play it. But yeah, I've been watching Delicious in Dungeon while assembling prototypes. It's on Netflix. I think there's 1 or 2 seasons there. And I'm enjoying it. There's one character that's annoying me a little bit, but I love the humor and the comedic timing between the characters who are kind of like explaining what monsters are all about and how to kill them, and then how to cook those monsters into delicious things. It's tough to explain, but the comedic timing of how they explain these things in a very matter-of-fact way is really funny. It's really good. So Delicious in Dungeon, thank you all for recommending that if you were one of the people who recommended that show. Yeah, I think that's all the topics for today. Thank you for, here's Williams popping at the very end to say about Design Day. Design Day was a blast. This was my 3rd year attending, and I look forward to meeting his Design Day friends as much as playtesting. Thank you for coming again. Thank you for joining us for disc golf again. 3rd year in a row that you've come to the disc golf portion, William. And congrats on your game. William's game was one of the games that people rated as being pretty much ready for publication. So, William, congrats on achieving that with your game. All right. Thank you all for joining me today, for popping in to say hi, for asking questions, for answering questions. This is always a joy for me. I'll be back next week for our monthly newsletter. So it'll be a monthly newsletter live cast next Wednesday. right before Essen Spiel, or as Essen Spiel is kind of starting up. Take care. See you later. Bye.